President Trump and Vice President Pence, good afternoon, sirs. My name is Richard Tatum, and I just think you should maybe get an update from the field out here about what's going on out there in America, maybe outside of the world that you don't get to see based on your positions and where you are. First, I'd like to let you know that I am one of your most avid supporters. I voted for you. I regularly donate money to your campaign, and most of everything that you've done to make America great again, I'm on board with 100%. And I know I speak for dozens of people that I interact with on a regular basis, and I know that I probably speak for millions, if not tens of millions of other Americans who are kind of feeling like I do right now, and I base that assertion on the fact that I've been watching and commenting on a lot of news articles on coronavirus. So here's the note update from the field, sir. The unintended consequences of what are going on out here are beyond your comprehension and your ability to control. Most of the things that are happening right now are not helpful. They are actually creating fear and a panic among the population, and things are going to go very south, very bad, if we don't get the current message across that I am proposing to you, that you change the messaging that we have. And the messaging that should be going out is something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to keep our country strong. We need to keep doing our jobs. We need to keep living our lives. At the same time, we need to look at the CDC website for coronavirus, which is pretty much a copy-paste from the influenza website, and take precautions to make sure that we all stay safe and healthy. If someone is an at-risk person, such if they're in fragile health, if they're elderly, then they should maybe avoid large gatherings. They should maybe really consider whether they have to travel or not in an airplane or on a cruise boat or things like that. If you have symptoms of a cold or a flu, best that you stay home until those symptoms are gone so that you don't transmit it to other people. But these would just be normal precautions that we all should be taking anyway because of the normal flu, which, by the way, about 30 million people got in 2009, and it was a pretty bad year. 80,000 people died from the normal flu, which, as I looked over here, I did the math, that's actually a 0.27% death rate from the normal flu. Now, many may be saying, well, that's the coronavirus is much higher. It's up around 3%. Well, sir, I was watching your Fox Town Hall, which I thought you did an awesome job, by the way, President Trump, and you yourself said that you believe that the death rate is about 0.2%. And that's actually probably true because the Ohio senior health official there today said that there are potentially 100,000 new cases in Ohio alone. So if we take just 100,000 cases, new cases in Ohio, and then add it to the 2,000 or so that we've supposedly already reported, and then take the number of deaths, which is, I think, right around 50 or something like that right now. Last I looked, it's 41. It might have gone up a little bit. I mean, we're talking again about a minuscule percentage of the people out there who have this thing that are dying from it. Now, I was just doing a little commenting on a Wall Street Journal article, and there I made the point that right now what is happening is the government is picking winners and losers, what I call coronavirus winners and losers. The winners are, if you're elderly and you're frail and you're sick, we are going to make a maximum effort to make sure that you do not get exposed to coronavirus. Well, that sounds noble. What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is the maximum effort is incredibly damaging to the well-being of the other, I don't know, 3/4 of America, 80% of America, 85% of Americans who, if they get this thing, it's just going to be, the number one, it may be asymptomatic, or they might have the mild flu. Now you may be saying, well, what about you? What if it happened to you, Rich Tatum? Well, I actually had the flu sometime back in February of this year of 2020. And I was sick for about 7 days, and it was kind of irritating and frustrating. Obviously, it wasn't a real bad case of the flu. Who knows? Maybe it was coronavirus. I got it after traveling on a business trip, but I'm fine. And unfortunately, my wife got it, and she had it for about 6 days, and she's fine. And we've gone on with our lives. The unintended consequences of what is happening and what is going to happen, because the government is now picking winners and losers. Winners being basically maximum effort to save the elderly and the sick, and everybody else gets to sit home and just not go to work and not earn money and have their livelihoods and their businesses destroyed while we try to save the elderly and the sick. That is the government should not be making those kind of choices of picking winners and losers. And also, it's way too much power for the government to have. Way too much power for the government to have. Now that may sound very callous, like, what do you want, old people and sick people to die? Of course I don't. Who does? But life is full of suffering. Life is full of sickness. Viruses, bacteria, strep throat cases. There are about 13 to 15,000 cases of acute strep throat every year, and 1,200 to 16 people a year die just from strep throat. Should we quarantine everybody at home that has strep throat? The point is, sir, is that this is a way overreaction. I don't know if you know, but your CDC, on a website that they have about sexually transmitted diseases, says there are 20 million now, annual new STD transmissions every year in the United States of America. 20 million. That's like 2/3 of the number of people that get the flu. And approximately, depending on what website you look at, 15,000 or so people a year die just from AIDS and AIDS complications. Have we shut down, travel from other parts of the world, certainly from Europe, because there's a huge STD problem over there, and I'm sure thousands, if not tens of thousands of people come to the United States every year with STDs, and they contribute to those 20 million new STD cases. The overreaction is not helpful. People are driven primarily by their emotions, sir. They are driven primarily by the certainly when the emotion is fear, the mammal part of the brain takes over and it says, what do I have to do to keep myself safe? And if public officials and people are out there saying things like Dr. Fauci said, he said, well, we should cancel NBA basketball games. I would recommend to the NBA that they not play any more basketball games. And then the governor of Ohio puts pressure on the Ohio sports teams to end their games. And then the governor of California says people shouldn't congregate in masses of 1,000 people. As if people that have gone to NBA basketball games and concerts in California since time immemorial, to speeches or concerts or whatever, have not contracted, communicable diseases. I mean, it would be true so in the past, no one contracts communicable diseases at concerts and sporting games and stuff like that, but with coronavirus they do, so we got to shut all that down. But it's completely illogical. But see, now we're thinking logically. People just think, well, the people in the government say it's bad, and people in Italy have been quarantined, and so boy, I should just, I don't know, I gotta go to the store and I gotta buy all the toilet paper and hand sanitizer that I can. See, sir, a lot of what you're doing is just driving people's fear. And you might think they're logically going to go look at the CDC website and use the cognitive part of their brain to go, well, it's not that bad. I just, got to wash my hands. And if I'm a person at risk, here's some recommendations for me not to fly and not to be on cruise ships and, to stay away from large crowds. But everyone else will be fine. But that is not what's happening. Okay? Today, it's you can't buy toilet paper and hand sanitizer. The cascading effects and the chain of unintended consequences that are going to happen are going to be incredibly detrimental, not only to the well-being of those elderly people, but to all 330 million Americans. And as a side tangent, it's going to be extremely detrimental to your re-election campaign, because when people over the next 9 months or so, 8.5 months running up to the campaign, if people don't have jobs, if people aren't earning income, they're not going to be able to contribute to your re-election campaign. And you may say, well, that's true for the Democrats too. I will tell you, sir, and that there is a much higher percentage of people, funding Republican campaigns. And I don't know if this is necessarily true or not, but a lot of your funds actually that are coming in are from people like me who donate $20, $25, $30 a month to different campaigns of Republicans around the country. And I'm sure there are some high, value Republican donors in the wings somewhere. Although apparently the Koch brothers don't like you. There's only one of them left, I guess, but they're not a big fan, so they may not be pumping a lot of money in your campaign. But on the left, they've got all those tech giants. They have billions of dollars. This whole thing, they could not work for the next 10 years, and it wouldn't matter to them one bit. Same with people in the entertainment industry. They've got hundreds of millions of dollars to donate to their preferred left-wing political candidates, and not working. They could all retire now and still have millions of dollars to give and never have to work a day in their life. So, sir, I am asking you to seriously reconsider your messaging on this. And the messaging, again, needs to be something to the effect of, let's continue to live our lives. Let's continue to be safe with our healthcare procedures. Let us also make sure that when we're dealing with the elderly and the sick, that we do take precautions with them. And oh, by the way, here's another thing that you really need to be concerned about, sir, is you're playing right into the socialist hands, right? Because when you start saying things like, well, we should provide compensation for people who are, out of work because of coronavirus. Yes, the socialists say, great, you're right. We should have universal income, right? There should be a universal income. So if people get sick and they lose their jobs, they still have an income. You're playing right into their hands. When you say things like, well, we're going to get the healthcare companies to waive coronavirus copays and stuff like that, you're playing right into their hands again. Yes, see, we all need universal health care that we shouldn't have to pay for. I mean, why is coronavirus different than anything else? And that's actually a very good question, sir. Why do people who get coronavirus, I mean, again, it's not like Ebola or something, well, how come they get their health care copays waived and whatever maybe treatment they're going to have? We're going to try and, and why do they get reimbursed for their salaries or whatever, where people who get strep throat and are down for a week or two, or get the regular flu and are down for a week or two, or who knows, maybe get a nasty case of food infections, which, by the way, that's 48 million people a year or so that get food poisoning, and I don't know, 5,000 or 6,000 people, if I remember the CDC website right, die from it every year. How come, are they going to get their copays waived? Are people with the flu going to get their copays waived? How about people with cancer, right? It's just, you're playing right into their hands. It is not the government's job to save us from coronavirus. It is each individual's personal responsibility to prevent, help stop the spread. We're not going to get rid of it. Stop the spread. The government can be helpful. The government can do some screening at the borders. The government can make sure that we have a manufacturing base where medicines are in decent supply, which whoever, by the way, is not watching that whole thing where 95% of our antibiotics are actually made in China, whoever's job that is to kind of watch those people need to be fired immediately, like right now. And we need, and the things that you could do to be helpful would be things like that, like, okay, we're going to get our medicine manufacturing base back up here in the United States of America. We're going to get our medical equipment manufacturing base back up here in America. But the things that you're doing and the things that the CDC are doing, many of them, sir, I'm sorry, they're just not helpful. You're creating a panic and you're doing more harm than good. There was a WSJ article that said Secretary Chow in a meeting a few weeks ago brought up the fact that, well, if we just listen to the CDC and start quarantines and shutting down, large gatherings and stuff like that, there's going to be a huge economic benefit. And supposedly the mood in the room was, well, that's very callous. Well, let me ask you this, sir. How many people do you think might commit suicide when they were living on the edge anyway, and they lose their job, and now they have no ability to provide for themselves and or their families, and oh, by the way, they get kicked out of their apartment because they can't pay their rent or their mortgage? How many marriages will go down the drain? How many people that are on the edge of divorce, this will just kick them over it? How many people that already have anxiety and depression will go into even a deeper state of those kind of diseases? The message, sir, is stay strong, carry on, keep living your lives, go to the CDC website, do the things that we all knew since we were 5 years old about how to keep ourselves healthy, especially during a flu season. Be very careful if you're around elderly and sick people, and if you're one of those people, make sure you look at the CDC website to get the recommendations that you need to keep yourself safe. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, let us keep living our lives. Unfortunately, people die. They die from coronavirus. They die from strep throat. They die from sexually transmitted diseases like AIDS. But we need to stay strong and carry on. And we're with you. We're for you, sirs. We want this to work out for you. But the unintended consequences of the actions that you are taking are going to do more damage to this country than you can possibly ever know. Ever know, because the idea of chaos and the theory of chaos, this is the rolling effects are going to happen with people's lives and their jobs and their mental health and their physical health as the economy goes down the drain, as people by the millions lose their jobs. You can't even fathom what that's going to be like. And yes, if we have concerts and people take vacations and we have sporting events, some more people might get the flu and some more people might die. But sir, that's been going on long before coronavirus ever showed up on American shores. I ask that the Lord bless you and keep you and your family. I ask that He make His light to shine upon all of us as Americans. If you actually took the time to listen to this, God bless you. God bless you for being a great American. And God bless this greatest country on God's green earth, the United States of America.